You know, some stories are like old shoes, worn, predictable, and honestly not worth your time. But this one? Oh, honey, buckle up, because it's about to knock your socks off. Let me introduce you to Leila Thompson, a 10-year-old firecracker of a girl with more smarts in her little finger than most adults have in their whole head. Leila lives in Montgomery, Alabama. Yeah, that Montgomery, dripping in history and southern charm, but soaked in enough hypocrisy to make your stomach turn. She shares a creaky old house with her mom, Jessica, and her grandma, Rose. The house might not look like much. It leans to the left like it's been sipping on bourbon. But inside, it's filled with love and laughter, mostly coming from Leila herself. Jessica, Leila's mom, is a waitress who works double shifts at a diner where tips are as scarce as snow in July. She's the type of woman who can carry 5 plates on one arm and still have a free hand to roll her eyes at rude customers. Rose, on the other hand, is a living legend. She marched with Dr. King back in the day, and she'll tell you all about it whether you ask or not. Leila eats those stories up like Sunday fried chicken. Now don't let Leila's small frame fool you. She's got a brain sharper than a butcher's knife and a mouth to match. She's the kid who asks too many questions in school, the kind that makes lazy teachers sweat. But being the smartest kid in the room doesn't always make you the most popular. In her predominantly white school, Leila's confidence and curly hair make her an easy target. Ghetto Barbie, they call her, like it's supposed to hurt. Leila just rolls her eyes and mutters, "Bless your heart," which, as you know, is Southern for go to hell. But let's not sugarcoat it. Leila's life isn't exactly a fairy tale. Last week she wore shoes so worn out the soles were practically see-through. When her teacher, Mr. Cross, a middle-aged man with a superiority complex the size of Texas, saw them, he chuckled and said, "Leila, did your family forget what a shoe store looks like?" The class laughed. Leila didn't. She just stared at him, her jaw tight, her fists clenched under the desk. Oh, she could have let him have it right there, but Leila knew better. "Pick your battles," her grandma always said. So she swallowed her anger. For now. But the real storm came a few days later. It was an ordinary Thursday afternoon. Leila was walking home from school, her backpack heavier than her shoulders could handle. The sun was beating down and she could feel the Alabama heat creeping into her shoes. She stopped to grab a soda at the corner store, the kind of place that smells like old cardboard and chewing tobacco. As she stepped outside, a police cruiser pulled up. 2 officers got out, both white, both looking like they'd rather be anywhere else. One of them, Officer Reed, barked, "Hey kid, stop right there." Leila froze. She wasn't doing anything wrong, but she knew better than to argue with cops. Her mom had drilled it into her head. Don't talk back, don't make sudden moves, and for God's sake, don't reach for anything. Leila wasn't scared. She was furious. But she played along. "Yes, sir," she said, her voice steady. Reed squinted at her like she'd just crawled out of the swamp. "We got a report about a stolen candy bar from this store. You wouldn't happen to know anything about that, would you?" Leila blinked. Was this a joke? A candy bar? "Sir, I didn't steal anything. I bought a soda. You can check with the cashier." The other officer, whose name tag read Hanson, smirked. "Smart mouth, huh? Let's see what the cashier says." They marched Leila back into the store. The cashier, an elderly black man named Mr. Wilkins, looked up from his crossword puzzle. "She didn't steal nothing, officers. I sold her that soda myself." Reed frowned but didn't back down. "Well, maybe we should check her bag just to be sure." Leila's blood boiled. "You can check all you want," she snapped, shoving her backpack at him. "But you won't find anything because I'm not a thief." Reed rifled through her bag, pulling out notebooks, pencils, and a dog-eared copy of To Kill a Mockingbird. When he found nothing, he handed the bag back with a shrug. "Guess you're clean, this time." Leila stared at him. Her eyes burning with tears she refused to shed. "This time?" she said, her voice trembling. "I didn't do anything, and you know it." But they were already walking away, laughing, like it was all a big joke. When Leila got home, she told her grandma everything. Rose listened quietly, her face like stone. When Leila finished, Rose said, "Baby, this ain't the first time, and it won't be the last. But we're not going to let them get away with this." "What can we do, Grandma?" Leila asked, her voice small. Rose leaned in close, her eyes blazing. "We're going to fight. And trust me, sugar, they picked the wrong family to mess with." Leila didn't know what her grandma had planned, but she knew one thing. This was far from over. "Let me tell you something about Leila Thompson. You push her, she doesn't just push back. She shoves, kicks, and swings for the fences." After the incident with Officer Reed and his sidekick, Leila wasn't just mad, she was volcanic. But like her grandma always said, don't throw a punch unless you're ready to knock 'em out. The day after that humiliating scene at the corner store, Leila woke up with a mission. She had spent the entire night replaying the encounter in her head, every insult, every smug look. It was like a bad song stuck on repeat. But Leila wasn't the type to sulk. No, ma'am. She was the type to strategize. By lunchtime, Leila had gathered every ounce of dirt she could find on the officers. Turns out, in a small town like Montgomery, people love to talk, especially when it's about cops who think they're untouchable. She heard everything. How Officer Reed was known for pulling over black kids just to check their bags. How Hansen once handcuffed a 14-year-old for jaywalking. It was disgusting, and Leila's stomach churned, but she wasn't surprised. What a pair of heroes, Leila muttered under her breath as she jotted down notes in her little spiral notebook, the one her mom had given her for school assignments. Ironically, it was now filled with plans for a takedown. Leila, what the hell are you doing? Grandma Rose had spotted her scribbling furiously at the kitchen table. She set down her cup of tea, sweetened to diabetic levels, of course, and gave Leila the kind of look that could peel paint. Just writing some thoughts, Leila said, trying to sound casual. Grandma squinted at her. Thoughts, huh? Baby, those better not be the kind of thoughts that get you locked up, Leila grinned. No, ma'am. Just the kind that make other people wish they never got out of bed, Rose smirked. That's my girl. Now, here's where things got messy. And by messy, I mean full-on soap opera levels of drama. Later that day, Leila's mom, Jessica, came home from another grueling shift at the diner. Her uniform smelled like burnt coffee and grease, and her face screamed, "Please, just 1 minute of peace." But peace wasn't on the menu. Mom, Leila said as soon as Jessica walked in, we need to talk. Jessica sighed, kicking off her shoes. Oh Lord, what now? Leila launched into the story, every painful detail of what happened at the store, the way the officers humiliated her, the lies, the laughter. Jessica listened, her expression shifting from tired to furious. By the time Leila finished, her mom looked like she was ready to grab a frying pan and march down to the police station. They did what? Jessica's voice was sharp enough to cut glass. I said they accused me of stealing a candy bar, Leila repeated, her voice rising. A candy bar, Mom? Like I'm some kind of... That's enough, Jessica interrupted, holding up a hand. I believe you, baby. You don't need to convince me. Leila stopped, her chest heaving. Jessica placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder and looked her dead in the eye. We're gonna fix this. You hear me? But you gotta let me handle it. Leila nodded, but inside, she wasn't so sure. Her mom was strong, but Leila had learned early on that strength doesn't always win in a rigged game. Sometimes you had to play smarter, not harder. 2 days later, Leila found herself back at the courthouse. This time, though, she wasn't a bystander. Grandma Rose had called in a favor from an old friend, Mr. Michael Garrett, a local lawyer who had a reputation for taking on cases nobody else would touch. He wasn't just good, he was damn good, and he had the courtroom swagger to prove it. Michael leaned down to meet Leila's eye. You must be the infamous Miss Thompson. Heard a lot about you, Leila shrugged. Yeah? Hope it's the good stuff. Michael laughed. All of it. Let's see if you live up to the hype. Leila smirked, but her heart was pounding. She had never been inside a courtroom before, and it was more intimidating than she expected. The air was heavy with the smell of polished wood and old paper. The benches creaked under the weight of nosy spectators, most of whom had shown up just to see what all the fuss was about. At the front of the room, the judge entered. Judge George Miller, a man with the personality of a brick wall and the charm to match. He was known for his no-nonsense attitude and had a soft spot for the police. Leila's stomach churned. All right, Judge Miller said, his voice booming. What's all this about? Michael stood up, adjusting his tie. Your Honor, we're here to address a gross misuse of power by Officers Reed and Hansen, who falsely accused my client of theft without any evidence. Judge Miller raised an eyebrow. A candy bar? We're clogging up my docket over a candy bar? Michael didn't flinch. With all due respect, Your Honor, this isn't just about a candy bar. This is about systemic discrimination and the abuse of authority, and we've got the receipts to prove it. Leila watched as the courtroom murmured, the tension rising like steam in a kettle. She glanced at Grandma Rose, who gave her a reassuring nod. This was it, the beginning of something big. But Leila wasn't just nervous, she was ready. If they thought a 10-year-old girl couldn't take on the system, they were about to learn the hard way. When the courtroom doors slammed shut behind Leila and her crew, it felt like stepping into a battlefield. The air was heavy with tension, and every set of eyes in the room was fixed on her. But Leila? She wasn't fazed. She squared her shoulders, chin up, channeling every ounce of courage her Grandma Rose had ever instilled in her. All right, Mr. Garrett, Judge Miller started, flipping through his files with the enthusiasm of a DMV worker. Let's hear what you've got. Michael Garrett stood, radiating confidence. Your Honor, we have evidence that officers Reed and Hansen have a pattern of racial profiling and misconduct, including multiple incidents targeting minors. The room buzzed with whispers. Reed and Hansen shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Leila couldn't help but smirk. Yeah, feel that heat, boys. Miss Thompson, Garrett continued, gesturing for Leila to stand. Tell the court in your own words what happened. Leila took a deep breath and stepped forward. Your Honor, they didn't just accuse me of stealing a candy bar. They humiliated me. They made me feel like I wasn't even human. The room went silent. Even Judge Miller looked up from his papers. And it's not just me, Leila added, her voice steady. I found proof that they've done this to other kids in my neighborhood. I have videos, reports, and testimonies. They're abusing their power, and it's time someone called them out. Garrett handed a flash drive to the bailiff, who loaded it into the courtroom's projector. The screen flickered to life, showing grainy footage of Reed and Hansen harassing kids, slapping cuffs on them, and mocking them. The crowd gasped. One woman covered her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Your Honor, Garrett said, his voice firm. This isn't about a candy bar. This is about accountability. These officers have been getting away with this for years, and it's time to put a stop to it. Judge Miller leaned back in his chair, his face unreadable. We'll take a recess, he announced, banging his gavel. Court will reconvene tomorrow at 10 a.m. As people shuffled out, Leila caught a glimpse of Reed glaring at her, his face red with anger. She didn't flinch. Instead, she turned to her grandma, who gave her a proud nod. That was just the opening round, baby, Rose said, grinning. Tomorrow, we go for the knockout. Leila couldn't agree more. The courtroom was electric the next morning, buzzing with reporters and locals crammed shoulder to shoulder. Leila walked in with her head high, flanked by Grandma Rose and Michael Garrett. She looked like a pint-sized storm, ready to blow the roof off. Judge Miller banged his gavel, calling for order. All right, Mr. Garrett. You have the floor. Garrett stood calm as ever. Your Honor, we have one final piece of evidence, provided by none other than Miss Leila Thompson. It's damning, and it speaks for itself. Leila stepped forward, clutching her phone. Her heart was pounding, but her voice was steady. Your Honor, I recorded this last week. I didn't realize how important it was until now. The courtroom projector flickered on, showing Reed and Hansen in a dimly lit alley. Reed handed a thick envelope to none other than Judge Miller himself. The audio was grainy, but clear enough. Thanks for keeping things quiet, Judge. We owe you one. The room erupted. Gasps, whispers, the shuffling of feet. Judge Miller froze, his face pale as a ghost. That's enough, he barked, slamming his gavel. This court is adjourned. But it was too late. Reporters swarmed the room. Garrett smiled like a man who just won the lottery. Your Honor, he said, loud enough for the whole room to hear, looks like this case just got a lot bigger. Reed and Hansen bolted for the exit, but they didn't get far. Officers from Internal Affairs blocked the door, cuffs in hand. Judge Miller tried to slink away, but Leila's voice cut through the chaos. You're not going anywhere, she said, her voice steady, sharp. Not until you answer for what you've done. For a moment, the room went silent. Then, like a dam breaking, the applause began. Thunderous, unstoppable. Leila didn't smile, though. She simply turned to her grandma, who nodded with pride. That's my girl, Rose said, tears in her eyes. Told you we'd knock him out. Leila walked out of that courtroom not just as a kid, but as a force to be reckoned with. And everyone in that room knew they'd just witnessed the start of something big. Thank you to everyone who took the time to listen to this story. We hope it struck a chord with you and kept you hooked from start to finish. If you enjoyed it, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe to our channel, Life Mosaic. We're here to bring you the most captivating stories, crafted just for you. Take care, and we'll see you tomorrow.